That is true. He's healed a physical sight, which is phenomenal. But he's also really growing in spiritual sight. And we see that because, for example, when he first meets the Pharisees after being healed, they say, "Who is this?" He said, "I don't know, but his name is Jesus." He just knows his name. Then they come and they say a second time, "Were you really blind and did you get healed?" Blah, blah, blah. And he says, "Yes." "Who is that who did that?" "I think he is a prophet." Step number 2 requires greater sight. Step number 3, now confronted by the Pharisees again, he says, "He is from God. Who could do something like this? Only someone from God." And then finally, Jesus says, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" He says, "Who is he that I may worship, that I may believe?" He says, "I am," and he worships him. So you see his spiritual sight is actually growing slowly, steady, one step at a time. The Pharisees are going in the opposite direction. And I'm not sure we always hear this, but they're becoming more hardened. They're becoming more hardened in their position. So the first thing they are is divided and confused. Hey, we got this rule about the Sabbath, and this guy healed somebody on the Sabbath. That's breaking our rules. Would anybody from God really do that? Divided and questioning. Then they're judging. "You are a sinner," they say to the man born blind and healed, "and that man is a sinner," they say about Jesus. Wow. They're calling Jesus a sinner. Extraordinarily deceived. And yet they're hardening, they're getting more and more hardened in their judgment, because then again when they talk to the man born blind who's healed, they start to ridicule him and they throw him out. Now he's being persecuted. He was just healed, and now he's already carrying a cross. God doesn't make any bones about that. We're going to have to carry a cross, right? The parents were afraid. Sometimes we can be afraid to stand up for our faith in certain circumstances. But Jesus went back to the man and revealed more to him steadily as they went on. What about judgment? Is there somebody in your life right now that you feel like you're weak in that you judge that person? There's somebody that you're prone to judgment about, or judgment in general? This is a good moment for us to examine our conscience and just say, do I got a roommate or housemate that I judge? Do I got a family member that I judge? How hardened do I get in my judgment? Now, we all have to make some judgments. If you walk across the road, you got to make a judgment. Is the traffic okay, and do I walk across now or not? People make public statements all the time about facts or figures, and we have to make judgments. Are they telling the truth? Do we believe them or not? We're all making judgments. But holding judgment with another condemned, that's very dangerous. In the first reading, Samuel went to anoint the next king, and Jesse brought all the sons out one at a time. The first was the most powerful, good-looking, kind of like last chance mass goers. Is that the one? Samuel thought that must be the one. He was kind of making a judgment. The tall, good-looking, powerful, athletic, whatever, influential, you name it. God said, no, that's not the one. 6 more came after. Now I think about this. This is what's amazing about Samuel. Samuel saw 7 sons in a row. He thought he saw them all. Where's anybody else? No one else around. But he heard God's voice say, it's not any of these. You judge the appearance, but I see into the heart. Back to judgment. Judging the appearance versus seeing into the heart. But Samuel heard God. He could have at that moment in a certain weakness said, well, I must have made a mistake. It must be one of these 7. Let's do it again. But he was confident in hearing the voice of God saying no. So he asked, is there someone else? Yes, it's this David, the shepherd boy. He's ruddy. He's out in the fields. He's young and handsome. He's the littlest one of them. That's the guy. Because the Lord judges seeing into the heart. So one of the important things about opposing judgment is actually listening. When we judge somebody else, we can be proud. And we have to listen to the voice of God say, nah, you need to be humble. The other thing is, when we judge people, the thing that really perturbs us is often what we have in ourselves. So maybe you don't have a problem with somebody being proud, but maybe you have a problem with somebody who's always drawing the attention to themselves. And then you have to stop and think, well, maybe I like to draw the attention to me, right? And of course, the gospel says, look for the plank in your own eye, not just the speck in your brother's. All right. Judgment and listening. We have to make some judgments, but we want to think like God. God has a heart of mercy. God is patient. God is loving. God does not harbor condemning judgments, nor does he want us to become hardened in our judgments, but to have our hearts stay soft and to listen. So let's take a moment now and listen to the voice of God in our hearts.